When I chose to move to Sweden 12 years ago, it wasn't a political decision. I fell in love with Sweden's beautiful nature and a house in Gera that happened to be for sale, close to where Astrid Lindgren created Pippi Longstocking, who taught children worldwide about courage, independence, and standing up for what's right. But my decision to move was definitely made easier by what I already knew. Sweden is a well-organized society built on social responsibility, equality, and human dignity. Sweden and the Netherlands gave me something precious: the freedom to live authentically, to build relationships across borders, to help others in need. These aren't Swedish freedoms or Dutch freedoms, they're human freedoms. And today we gather to celebrate Ukraine's unwavering determination to claim these same universal rights. Sweden has given the world remarkable gifts. Olof Palme stood against apartheid when many were silent, showing that moral courage knows no borders. Astrid Lindgren didn't just entertain children, she taught them that the smallest person can make the biggest difference. These Swedish voices spoke to all of humanity, not just to Swedes. This is what liberal democracy at its best accomplishes. It creates societies that don't just serve their own citizens, but inspire and uplift people everywhere. Sweden became one of the least corrupt countries, not by accident, but by choosing transparency, accountability, and justice. When the Soviet Union collapsed, the world held its breath with hope. I remember crying when I saw people cross Checkpoint Charlie in Berlin in 1989. I thought freedom was finally within reach for everyone trapped behind the wall. But two very different paths emerged from that moment of possibility. Russia, sadly, chose the familiar route back to authoritarianism. Instead of building democracy, it rebuilt an empire. Instead of fighting corruption, it embraced kleptocracy. The result? A country blessed with vast resources that remains 34 years later, little more than what some economists call a gas station with nukes, unable to offer its people prosperity or hope. Ukraine chose differently. Despite enormous challenges, despite the burden of Soviet history, despite facing a powerful neighbor determined to prevent their success, Ukrainians choose the hardest path towards democracy, rule of law, and human dignity. I'll never forget the Maidan uprising in 2014. Night after night, I watched ordinary Ukrainians, students, teachers, workers, grandmothers, standing in the cold, demanding nothing more radical than what we take for granted here in Sweden. Honest government, freedom of expression, the right to choose their own direction themselves. They weren't asking for anything we wouldn't expect for ourselves. They simply refused to accept that their destiny should be determined by who is their biggest neighbor. That courage changed everything. It showed the world that the desire for freedom burns just as brightly in Kiev as it does in Stockholm or Amsterdam, or anywhere else human beings dare to dream of dignity. Over the past years, I've had the privilege of meeting people from both Russia and Ukraine. The contrast is both heartbreaking and inspiring. The Russians I've helped are good people fleeing their government's oppression. They often arrive beaten down, pessimistic about human nature itself. They've lived under a system that often teaches them cynicism, that tells people nothing can ever really change. Unlike Swedes, they don't smile at each other in the street. But the Ukrainians I've known, including a young man, Andrei, who lived in Gera last year, carry something different. Despite everything they've lost, despite the horrors they've witnessed, they maintain an unshakable belief in human possibility and personal freedom. Andrei drove elderly people away from the front lines near Kharkiv and Kherson, risking his life because he couldn't bear to see others suffer. This is the Ukrainian spirit, not just enduring hardship, but actively working to reduce it for others. What Ukraine defends today is everything that made our lives in Sweden, the Netherlands, and across Europe possible. Ukrainians are fighting for the right to have honest elections, for freedom of speech, for courts that serve justice rather than power, for the revolutionary idea that governments should serve their people, not the other way around. When Putin claims to represent a Russian world, he fundamentally misunderstands humanity itself. There is no Russian world, no Swedish world, no Ukrainian world. There's only one human world, one species, sharing one planet, deserving of the same dignities. The rights we enjoy here in Sweden aren't just Swedish rights, they are human rights. They belong to every Ukrainian, every Russian, every person anywhere who has the courage to stand up for them. Look at how Poland changed since joining the European Union. A country that also struggled with its communist past, where brave people stood up for solidarity. Poland is now one of Europe's success stories. Ukraine deserves the same. Our support isn't just about strategy or security. It's about the simple recognition that Ukrainian children deserve the same opportunities as Swedish children. Ukrainian families deserve the same safety as Dutch families. Ukrainian dreams deserve the same chance to come true as anybody else's. These freedoms we defend, they don't belong to any particular race, religion, or continent. Here in Vetlanda, we see this every day. People from Syria, Palestine, Ukraine, and countless other places contributing to our society, opening businesses, participating in our democracy, and enriching our society. Not by erasing who they are, but by adding their gifts to ours. Liberal democracy isn't about creating uniformity. Democracy is about creating space where humans can flourish under shared principles of dignity and equal rights. When we help Ukraine, we are not being charitable. We're simply recognizing our shared humanity. To the Ukrainians here today, I say, your courage has already changed the world. You've shown that the desire for freedom cannot be bombed out of existence, cannot be suppressed by propaganda, and cannot be defeated by fear. To my Swedish neighbors, I say, we have a chance to be part of something historic. Just as previous generations of Swedes stood against apartheid and for human rights, we must now stand with those who are literally dying for the values we love. Ukraine will win because the alternative, accepting that might makes right, that international law is meaningless, that democracy is optional, is unthinkable for anyone who has tasted freedom. Today we don't just celebrate Ukrainian independence, we celebrate the human spirit that refuses to accept that any person should be less free than any other. Ukraine is not alone. Ukraine will never be alone, because Ukraine's fight is humanity's fight, and humanity always chooses freedom. Long live freedom. Länge leve friheten. Slava Ukraini.
Beautiful, Mark.